The Moreness Show with hosts Syl and Beena is about to bring depth and value into your life.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, everybody. It's just the Moreness Show tonight with just Syl, not Syl and Beena. Beena, unfortunately, can't make it, but she'll be back next week, at least hopefully. It's a very busy time for Beena, so it's lots of things going on. Can be all good, all good. What tonight I want to focus on and cover on, and the title of our show is what Moreness-Culture is not. Sometimes when we want to understand what something is, it's very helpful to look at what it isn't. And especially when we look at that what it's not, uh, which are very subtle, which just implied, which are just supposed to be and shoulds and things of that nature. To illustrate, I'll talk about ambition. When I was a child in the culture that I grew up, and from what I see around the world, it's fairly common, or it's typical, I should say, in greater and lesser degrees. And that is that ambition is something that it's prized, it's important, it's valuable, it's something that you want to do, and you want to have, you want to be ambitious. It's kind of an important thing, right? Ambition. And that's just making it worse. Sorry, I was thinking my light. My light's a little weird today. I don't know why, but it's what it is. I'm a little overlighted. Yeah, I'm shining away like crazy. Oh well. So ambition when I was a kid was just this very big deal, really important. But nobody ever really spelt it out. Like, oh, you're ambitious. That's good. It's just implied. And what does ambition itself? What did that entail? What did it mean? Well, it meant having status. So whatever you did, you had to acquire status, which meant, well, if you're ambitious to accomplish ambition, you had to have something that has status, to be in a profession, or to have some kind of a title, whatever that may be, position that has a title, or even in your work, yeah, to have to be promoted, especially to get to the top of the ladder in whatever organization you're in. So ambition, therefore, implies some kind of status in the superiority ladder. Yes, and you can also have status or ambition succeed and be successful, which would also succeed in your ambition simply through having material objects. Yeah, wealth, in other words, and having a fancy house and a fancy car and wear nice clothes and things like that, right? That still also satisfied this ambition idea, which really, it's when you think about it, what does that do for you as the individual? Doesn't do anything, really, right? Doesn't do anything. Doesn't do anything for you, the individual, whatsoever. Those are external accomplishments. Yeah, I mean, you can achieve all of those and satisfy your ambition, but it doesn't necessarily do anything for you as a person. You might even satisfy your ambition and not be happy at all. Yeah, I take the most successful Olympic athlete ever by a long shot, Michael Phelps, suffered from depression. Yeah, somebody who meets every possible qualification for ambition. Yeah, didn't help him. We have to understand this. And when we realize that ambition is so intrinsic to our typical culture, whatever culture you may be in, because it's part of the superiority paradigm. And the paradigm transcends all cultures. Yes. Now, Moreness-Culture is within the Moreness-Paradigm. And so they kind of one and the same, very similar. But you could have other cultures in the Moreness-Paradigm that are not quite as specific as Moreness-Culture, because it's my creation. I get to set it up. Okay, but Moreness-Culture is a culture within the Moreness-Paradigm, and since I've defined it, Moreness-Culture focuses around personal development, community, collaboration, things like that, right? But you could have one, for instance, that's maybe geared around innovation only. And all right, okay, so the Moreness of innovation, experimentation, invention, etc., where you're not so much focused on personal growth, but you're looking at, exploring the boundaries of understanding or knowledge. Right? But if you're doing so without the hierarchy and ambition, then it would qualify as being within the boundaries of the Moreness-Paradigm. So this is very key to understand. And like I said, when I was a kid, this was always implied that you had to be higher up in that hierarchy, have status, have some kind of superiority. It was never said that way, of course, because when you say it that way, it kind of cheesy and hollow. And, well, it's just satisfying ego. And this is exactly what Moreness-Culture is not. It's not all about just satisfying the ego. Yeah, self-aggrandizement, self-importance. Look how wonderful I am. Look how clever I am. Look how successful I am. Look how wealthy I am, etc., etc. All of that doesn't really change what you are inside, right? External, shallow, hollow. So absolutely not what it is. So if we say, all right, it's not all about ambition, what is it about? Aspiration. Oh, what's the difference? I kind of thought the two were the same. No, it's a very big difference. So if I say I aspire to awareness, I aspire to have patience, I aspire to have integrity, I aspire to have impeccability. That's, wow, okay, that's kind of, I say I might even aspire to have nobleness of being, not nobility as in titles and hierarchy, that kind of nonsense, barons and dukes and kings and queens, not that kind of nobility, but to be noble of spirit and noble of soul. Wow, that's a really lofty ambition. Yes, it is so wonderful, right? Oh, and aspirations are about personal attainment, something that you are doing for yourself, right? As opposed to ambition, which is more related to external and to the perceptions of others. Right? So part of ambition is the approval of others. That's what status is all about, really. It is not about necessarily being good within yourself. It is being perceived as having accomplished something, as having status, right? And status can be, yes, you could have an accomplishment, but that doesn't always necessarily translate in you satisfying ambition. Yeah. So an accomplishment is not quite the same as status. Yes, I know people who have done incredible things, but it doesn't necessarily translate into the ambition world as, oh, look at them, look how wonderful they are. Yeah, so doesn't quite satisfy ambition. Yes, I mean, let's take somebody who I don't know, Doctors Without Borders. Yeah? And these are professionals who who give up their status and career and success, and they essentially go and work for nothing, just basically helping people. Doesn't really satisfy ambition. Yeah. Yes, it's all very good, a very noble endeavor, good for you, but doesn't really satisfy ambition. My mother was absolutely obsessed with ambition. Ambition was the most important quality for her when I was a child. So in other words, if I satisfied my ambition and didn't have any patience, for instance, no problem. As long as you satisfy the ambition. Yeah? And like in this case, if I said, well, I want to go and do this, she would have been like, she couldn't say, no, this is no good. She couldn't directly say that, but she wouldn't have been wildly thrilled because it didn't satisfy the ambition. There's no status in it. Nobody's going to recognize it. You're just anonymous doing your thing out there. That would not have made a particular application. She would have to say, well, that's very good. She'd have to reluctantly agree to it. I wouldn't have satisfied her ambition. No, you got to win trophies and get awards and get acclaim and all this kind of stuff. Have titles. This is it. So it's all about others and their perception. Moreness-Culture does not care one hoot about this. Yes. So Moreness-Culture is not thus about the perceptions of others, right? What they think is important. And having this relativity that's based on essentially nothing. Yes. Which, when you look at the superiority paradigm, what is it that people are chasing? They're chasing this paper tiger, this phantom, this hollowness, yeah, which is ambition. When you get it, what is midlife crisis? It's when you've succeeded in this hollow pursuit. And, well, okay, I have wealth, I have a good job, I have a good title, I've got status and approval, but yeah, it doesn't do anything for me. I need more. This is where mourners come from. Ask anybody who's going through midlife crisis. Well, what do you want? Well, I don't really know, but I know that what I have is not enough. I want more. I want more out of life. Isn't this like a cliche of midlife crisis, right? I want more out of life. Now, unfortunately, yes, they don't realize the difference between more and moreness, because what Moreness-Culture is not is about more being material. So the more in moreness, it's not about more wealth, or more having a more secure house. I don't know, bigger burglar alarm, or I don't know, whatever it is. Because security and wealth, very big deal for many people. They're very insecure. It goes back to our DNA. We've grown up, nature. Everybody's insecure in nature. It's a wild place, right? You're always on the edge. So it doesn't matter if you're an apex predator, as this popular term is. A snake can still get you. A poisonous spider. I don't know, germs, virus, fever, whatever. I mean, look at, just by the way, everybody wants to be a lion. Look up starving lions or unsuccessful lion prides. Yeah, ones that don't succeed, and they aren't successful in their hunting, and they get behind. And of course, when you miss a couple of hunts and kills, right, and you don't eat, now you've got less energy and you starve. And where those prides implode, yeah, or they get taken over by the hyenas. They lose the battle to the hyenas, big enemy of the lions. They have wars, lion hyena wars. Superiority is a horrible business. But we're so used to this in our DNA that we think this is what we should do and must do and are supposed to do in our lives. So we're always fighting when we don't absolutely need to. And when you think about civilization is really all about collaboration. The things that bring us to where we are, that make us civilized, very basic fundamentals, just having, running water in your house, storage and stuff like this. Those are all roads, all grand collaboration projects. Yes? What? You don't have to fight to get that. You have to collaborate to get that. So Moreness-Culture is very much about collaboration. It's taking the best of what makes us civilized and focusing on that. And very specifically saying, wow, I really want to unhook from this constant fighting. Fighting for image, fighting for status, fighting for superiority, fighting for somebody else's perception. What do I want to live in a reality, in a world where my happiness is dependent on others? And that make you very vulnerable. In other words, if other people withdraw their approval and positive opinion of you, then what? Yeah. And if you really understand the superiority paradigm, this is going to happen sooner or later. Why? Because if you're up there, at some point, those below you realize, well, compared to you, I'm kind of looking like rubbish, and you're making me look bad, so they want to pull you down. Yeah, it happens all the time. Celebrities go up, and at some point, they get pulled down. And this is a great joy to the superiority paradigm, because now they can feel better relatively. Yeah, well, a cappella, you see, you're just like me, you're ordinary after all. The bottom line is they're making themselves feel better. I think we have to go to commercial. I have to I forgot to tell you, the producer that just cut me off. So, all right, we'll be back after the commercial.
Mike Zorich, a three-time California state champion in Greco-Roman wrestling at 114 pounds. Mike, blind since birth, was born in Hartford, Connecticut. He was a six-time national placer, including 2 seconds, 2/3, and 2/4. He also won the Veterans Folk-Style Wrestling twice at 152 pounds. In all these tournaments, he was the only blind competitor. Nancy Zorich, a creative spirit whose talents have taken her to the stage and into galleries and exhibitions in several states. Her father, a commercial artist who shared his instruments with his daughter and helped her fine-tune her natural abilities, influenced her decision to follow in his footsteps. Ms. Zorich has enjoyed a fruitful career doing what she loves. Listen Saturday mornings at 12 Eastern for the Nancy and Mike Show for heartwarming stories and interesting talk on the BBM Global Network.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of the Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on the Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Brilliant. If we look at ambition and we really say, okay, you're saying Moreness-Culture is not about ambition. It's about not ambition. All right, aspiration is one alternative to ambition, but it's not all that specific maybe. So what can we fill in? What can we say, all right, if it's not ambition, what is it going to be? And it is, well, let's just take material. Most of our satisfaction, our ambition are connected to material accomplishments, or accomplishments that are like titles and things like that, yes, or awards or medals or anything like that. All right, to acquire medals, it's not necessarily a material acquisition, but it's more, like physical accomplishments. Okay, it could be skill accomplishments also, but still, the ambition part is not making a wonderful painting like the one behind me, which is in my book, by the way. All the backgrounds I use, they come from my book, the latest book. So just I use whatever's somewhat appropriate. You can't see the whole image because the background kind of zooms in on it. But it's that accomplishment. Let's say you paint a wonderful painting. It doesn't satisfy any ambition unless you sell it for a lot of money or you win an award, right? External approval related. However, from a Moreness-Culture point of view, if that painting gives you great joy, okay, that's part of Moreness. But we want to go further. We want to go deeper. So in Moreness, it's about the Moreness, which is typically not there readily graspable, because that's the usual. Moreness, a little extra, go a little deeper, right? It's not necessarily difficult. You just have to just make that little bit of effort to go a bit deeper. So the Moreness of what you would get out of your own painting is to stretch your abilities, right? To learn how to be more creative, to acquire the ability to be creative, to the ability to apply that creativity. Yes, that's a Moreness. Also, if you really get into your art, whether it be painting or music or poetry or carpentry, engineering, doesn't matter, everything, coding. Look up coding, art in coding. It's quite fantastic. Now, it's just blows one's mind what people do. They write the code in such a way that the way the code is, not just lines of code, it's usually very boring, but it actually creates something artistic. It's mind blowing. But when you look at this, or not but looking at this from a point of view of extending yourself, extending your awareness, extending your understanding, or extending your connectivity, art becomes spiritual. And it doesn't have to just be art, it can be physical activity too. I was saying, I think it was last week or maybe the week before, I was talking about how just in like track athletes or runners, how when they get to the absolute very peak, they say that to go further, they started, their running became very spiritual to them. They went into a whole different sphere of awareness, right? When they really at peak performance. And we hear this very regularly. So that's just in something very basic like running. Yes, runners will tell you it's not as simple as all that. There's a lot of skill involved, and it's not just training your body. There's actual skill involved in it too, right? Pacing yourself, measuring your breathing, etc. All sorts of things, and you have to have good character for the stuff to really start to come out. And yes, sometimes people don't always apply that good character when it comes to other people, but within their discipline they are, and not extended to everything else, right? So you might have patience with as a runner to pace yourself appropriately, but that doesn't mean that people apply that patience or that pacing when it comes to others, yeah? Or the interactions in life in general. Pacing is a fantastic skill to accomplish and acquire. Capital P pacing, very, 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 very powerful. We tend to be over enthusiastic, especially with our goodness sometimes, and we end up inappropriately applying our goodness because we're not pacing. So we get to the spiritual element, this Moreness element of deeper consciousness, greater understandings. And what is spiritual? That and is a connectivity to a Moreness that, wow, there's more to me than what I thought. Now, you could say that Moreness and give it any name, and there are 100 different names for it. But if you want to simplify it, and me personally, I like to simplify this, and just think of that Moreness as your deeper self, capital S self, your greater self, yeah, your profound self. If you think of it this way, it changes everything, because now you start to realize as you are connecting to the stuff, much of it you learn to discover it's not out there. And since I am focusing on my theme is what Moreness-Culture is not. In our typical culture, it's all about acquiring what's out there. And that's what enhances you. You are elevated. You are you succeed in your ambition, your accomplishments, whatever, typically by acquiring something that's out there. The medal, the award, the title, the wealth, etc. It's all about acquiring what's out there. But when we say, oh, wait a second, the real accomplishments, the ones that truly give me peace of being, the ones that last, the ones that give me joy, are the inner accomplishments. Yes, the accomplishments of personal competency. Oh, and I don't just mean being competent like, okay, like in the army. I don't know if you've ever been in the military, sergeants and corporals or staff sergeants and so on. They're very competent, especially organizing, getting things together, getting stuff done. That's how the military works. You want stuff done, you ask the sergeants. Many different kinds of sergeants, but that's it. The sergeants are the ones that actually get stuff done. And the officers, they give the orders, essentially make the plans, figure out the strategy. But that's the system. So the sergeants have great competency, but that's a physical competency, and a competency in terms of organizing and stuff. Not necessarily a competency of awareness, not necessarily a competency of character. So now we say Moreness-Culture. What is Moreness-Culture not? You could say, well, Moreness-Culture is about having physical and competency in terms of that material competency, if you want to put it, or competency in ordinary affairs. But we want to not only do that. So Moreness-Culture isn't only that. So it's not quite a contrast here, but it's taking that competency and extending it to yourself, to have character competency, which would include competency of mood management. Well, if you've ever hung around sergeants, typical sergeant is not very competent when it comes to mood management. It's essentially not angry, angry. That's it. When anything done, that's it. Angry sergeant. It's a cliche for a reason, right? That's kind of how they do things, yeah. Shout at everybody, boss them about, that's it. Angry through. Okay, there probably are lots of sergeants who aren't like that, but I'm making a point that your average sergeant, I doubt very much, is into mood management specifically. Right? I mean, yes, they might know how to utilize their anger, but I don't know if this applies to them personally, right? Where they can choose their moods. So we want to have mood competency. You can choose your moods. You kind of set, right? Because what is the point of your ambition? All that work, all that effort. Yeah, I mean, again, take Michael Phelps. Yes, just go and look at videos of his training routine and everything that he has to put in it to get to that level. It's absurd. I mean, the amount of work, at least to me, it's like, holy moly, man. You're doing all this, and yes, you get the medals, and you don't even feel good about it. You end up being depressed afterwards. It's like, and he's not the only one. This is it's a fairly common thing because the depression is very common with people who have such great accomplishments, especially when it's something like a medal. Because the thing in itself doesn't make you happy. You internally make you happy, but you've chased this dream, this fallacy, this flawed idea that should you accomplish your ambition, you succeed in your ambition, you're going to feel good. And when you don't, this leads to depression. Yeah, and because think about it. If you made all that effort to do something and you do it, and well, the idea is that you're going to feel great for it, and then you don't. Well, by implication, you have to make even more effort in order to feel good. But how much more effort can you make than that? You gave it your all, and it's very depressing, right? Very, very depressing. And so when we understand that mood management, if you can choose your moods, well, I can feel good without having to make all that effort to win the medals and everything. I don't need other people's approval to make it good, so I'm not dependent on them. I'm not vulnerable. Wow, this is fantastic. In other words, I have independence of being. I have freedom of being. Wow, brilliant. But then, some smart aleck will come and say, yeah, but okay, you may be feeling good, but you're in this blind, oblivious bubble. And, the first dangerous thing that comes along just wipes you out. And, well, or you lose your job because you're oblivious to economic circumstances or whatever. And, next thing you find yourself on the street because you were so busy feeling happy that you didn't plan, okay. So we need awareness also, right? You need to have the ability to be competent with your moods, but you also need to be competent with your awareness. And I don't just mean awareness as to be aware of what's going on around you, but understanding how to deal with this. So we need a competency when it comes to dealing with the ordinary world. Because there's all sorts of people in the world, just like when you go out into nature. Some of the nature is benign and friendly, and others is not, right? You can eat some things, you can't eat others. You can interact with some people, you can't interact with others. It's very much similar. So we need to have this competency of awareness, not just awareness, because it's no good to just be aware of people. Okay, I'm aware this person is not so nice. I need to be able to discern precisely what's going on with their not niceness, to see what they're up to, how they're trying to manipulate you or whatever, abuse you, whatever they're trying to do, right? We need that discernment, but also we need discernment just to perceive the moreness of others. I spent most of my life not showing my moreness because the environment was not appropriate to that. Well, like when I was in the military. Yes, you show anything that is anything resembling any kind of the moreness that I'm talking about, your life is going to be very miserable, right? It's just not an environment in which stuff like that is tolerated or accepted. Yes, it's used as a means to basically just give you a hard time, yeah, and make your life miserable. And any excuse to do that. So any difference that's outside the norm, it's it's seen as a negative, not as a positive. Right? So moreness not accepted in such environments, which leads us to an understanding of what Moreness culture is. It is precisely where that lack of or the inability to be more, where it's not appropriate. In Moreness culture, it very much is. You can share in Moreness culture. You can share your aspirations, your dreams. You can share your progress. You can share your wow. I was thinking about this, and I looked at this, and this was something really that opened my mind, that blew my awareness, that really raised my discernment. This that you can share about your understandings. Yeah, you can share about the deeper. Yeah, I remember when I was a kid too. By the way, this was like the slang of it. That's too heavy, man. Heavy and man, everything was heavy or man. So heaviness was like getting into the sobriety, getting into moreness, getting into the deepness of stuff. But it became a negative. And I remember listening to people talk about, like, just in people hanging out, and the conversation gets a bit heavy. And I remember this would come up regularly. And somebody would say, yeah, but, this is like important stuff. If you don't like think about it, don't deal with it, don't resolve this, it's going to cause a problem in your life. I'll deal with it later. Yeah, I know it's important. Yeah, I know I should be talking about this. I know I should be dealing with it, but I'll do it later. Oh, man. Later never comes. Later never comes. I'll talk about later and this very specificness of why it's important to deal with it now after the commotion.
Dr. RC will share extraordinary resources and services that promote educational success, as well as making a difference in the lives of all social workers, as well as the lives of children, adolescents, and teens of today. She will have open discussions addressing many of the issues that we face about our youth and how being employed in the uniquely skilled profession of social work for over 18 years has taught invaluable lessons through her personal experiences. She will also provide real-life facts, examples, and personal stories that will confirm that why serving as a child advocate is extremely beneficial when addressing the needs of the whole child. Listen live to Dare to Soar, Saturdays, 10 a.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network, and tune in radio as Dr. RC will provide thought-provoking information that will empower, encourage, and strengthen students, families, and communities across our nation. You can also visit her at soarwithkatie.com. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
Brilliant. So when we look at this point of the moreness and what we really want to have in our lives, and I was talking about those avoidance of heavy subject. Moreness is precisely dealing that. I was in the lives that I do on most days on Facebook, and then I share it to the various channels, social media channels, YouTube and Instagram, TikTok, whatever. I'm doing a capital R reading, which is exactly applying awareness, discernment, understanding, and then through application, providing extra context, looking at layers, going depth, and on Carlos Castaneda's books, and to understand Don Juan's whole cosmology and what he shares, particularly when it comes to character. and tools that we can use from a character point of view to enhance our lives, to add moreness. And so today we were reading the chapter, it's in book 3, chapter 4, Death as an Advisor. Now, oh man, this is a heavy topic, death. Yes. And in our typical superiority paradigm, people avoid anything to do with death. It's an unpleasant topic. It's really horrible. Death is fear. I'm going to come to this in a moment a little bit more about this whole relationship with the unknown. But particularly to take something that is seen as a heavy, as a negative, and we transform it. This is what Moreness-Culture is all about. Is to find that moreness, that real bonus, that extra value, and not to just write off things because we believe they are uncomfortable and awkward. Yes. So, in terms of what Moreness-Culture is not, it's not about avoidance of that which is important simply because it's difficult. And it's very specifically also about changing our beliefs. So let's really get into this like heavy. Yes, I mean heavy is about topics that are serious, that have sobriety to them, that are important, but not necessarily pleasant. But says who they have to be unpleasant. The only reason why we believe they are unpleasant is because the unknown has been, for the aeons that we've existed, unknown equals danger. Unknown equals stress, right? That's it. I mean, just look at animals and present them with anything that's unknown, and they get afraid very, very quickly. Actually, if you are in situations where you are dealing with predators, if you can behave in a way that makes your behavior very unknown to them, they get very discombobulated. There's a video that's running around out on the internet there about these 2 male lions and this little yappy dog that comes. Yes. And the yappy dog is yapping, and he kind of nips at their feet, and they have no clue what this dog is doing. And you can see them at first, like the uncertainty, like what's going on here. And you can see they get more and more uncomfortable as they cannot figure out what this dog is out. It just makes no sense because he's got absolutely no fear, and he's yapping, and he's not being aggressive either, but they can't place it. The little dog becomes an unknown to those 2 lions, right? Big, massive lions. And they can't deal with it. It's quite fascinating. And if we understand this, this is essential. It's elementary to our paradigm, our psychology. It comes from our DNA. It's very deeply entrenched. And when you add the biggest fear of superiority paradigm, which has gone from physical dominance and physical security to status security. Yes. Now, the unknown, right? That's going to make you look stupid. Oh my God, this is the worst possible thing in superiority paradigm. Looking bad, right? Looking stupid, looking bad. Yes, being embarrassed and stuff like this. This is like the worst possible fear. So the unknown, when associated with that, we don't want to ever go anywhere near the unknown because that's risky. Because the unknown, it might expose you to what you don't know, and if you don't know, well, then you look stupid. Which means you can't go anywhere near the unknown. Oh, really? Really? Well, that's not what Moreness-Culture is all about. Now, you say, well, do you explore the unknown? Well, kind of yes, but I thought, and I really gave this a lot of thought, and it's one of the reasons why Moreness-Culture and the word Moreness has come about. When we understand that so much of our psychology, our typical psychology, is determined by labels. Labeling, I'm saying, rather than words, labels. Why? Because a label is telling you, when I put a label on my drawer, for instance, it tells me what's in the drawer. It's a label that lets me know specifically what's involved, what this is all about, right? As opposed to, I don't just put a random word on that label and stick it on the drawer. It's not going to help very much. Right? So the labels let me know what's going on. And this is how our brain works. The label has got an association. Okay, the label has stationery, art supplies, whatever. And I know what this is. Unknown is likewise a label. Yeah? But when we really understand labeling, it's all about the associations. Unknown doesn't just mean I don't know what is in here. Right? If I put unknown on a drawer, that's not going to be very stressful. But some people may be a bit cautious in opening that drawer. Yeah, well, because it could be a negative surprise, or it could be a positive surprise too. But we default to giving the negative more weight and more value. Why? Because you can be wrong about the positive and it's not going to really matter. But if you're wrong about the negative, it can have very serious consequences. Yeah. However, when we really look at things more closely, when we look at life and we see that the chances of things being negative and positive are pretty much even. Yes. And actually, well, when you really look at it, actually, no, it's actually more positive than negative. Yeah, when I go walking out in nature, right, I just walk randomly. Yes, I mean, obviously, I'm avoiding walking into holes and walking into sharp things. So, okay, that negative is out there, but it's not that hard to avoid it. Yes. At the same time, most of the things that where I'm going in the place I'm at, I'm not dying as a result of it. I'm not getting ill as a result of it. It's actually a very small chance. We remember those because they stand out. But in terms of me just hanging out in nature, just going anywhere in nature, well, most of the time it's positive, 99.9% of the time. So when we realize this and we start to see, wow, it's not just that there's positive and negative, there's also a moreness that I didn't even realize was there. But when I start paying attention, I realize I can see the sort of regular world and see the moreness on top of it. Yeah? And when people talk about, for instance, a spiritual experience in nature, stuff like that, that's moreness. So instead of looking at the unknown, which is superiority paradigm, that's it. Unknown is really whatever's out there that you don't know about is unknown, but it's negative. But in Moreness-Culture, that very same what's out there is now labeled moreness. An example I like to use here, I may have used this in a previous show, but I'll use it again. Let's say I win the $1 billion lottery, and I say, well, you know what, I'm going to buy a spaceship. Let's just assume they're available, and I'm going to go out and into the unknown. Who'd like to come with me? So, going out into the unknown, I don't know, man. That sounds a bit risky and dicey. It's like, okay, never mind. You go out. We'll catch you maybe some other time. Right? In other words, going out into the unknown for the average general person, not very exciting. Yes, there are some people who have that, kind of a mindset, massive risk takers who like to push the boundaries. They'd be keen on it. But if you were to, poll the average person, they would say, no, thank you. But if I went and said, okay, I won the lottery and I bought the spaceship and I'm going to go out, adventuring out into the moreness of space. Yes, going to explore moreness and connecting to moreness and just to see find the moreness that's out there. Who wants to come with me? Oh, moreness, yeah, moreness, that's great. Yeah, I want some moreness in my life. I'm with you. I'm going to have a lot more positive responses because it's going out into space. Not everybody's going to come with. But, you get to the practicalities. But I'm making the point here that when we do the exact same thing under the label of the unknown, we're very trepidatious, we're fearful, we're anxious, we're stressed. But under the exact same activity labeled as moreness, it now suddenly becomes interesting, exciting. And even if you're not into Moreness-Culture, or not even aware there is such a thing yet, you're still deeply inside the ambition culture. Moreness appeals to ambition, even, right? Any aspiration and moreness is pretty much the same thing. Moreness is extra, bonus, additional, right? Whereas unknown, that's not good. So when we see this and we see that Moreness-Culture is not about unknown and the fear and the stress and the negative, it is about moreness, which is making that emphasis on the positive, extra, right? And when we do that, it's fascinating because you've got the exact same scenario. And the only change is a change in your perspective, change in your attitude. That's the labeling. Yeah. To go into an activity that you don't know, right? Let's just say we go out into nature. Okay. Going there with moreness, or we're going to explore the unknown. One is fun and the other one not. It's very, very, very powerful. And one of the profound techniques in Moreness-Culture is to face and deal the awful truth. To do that, you transform it into the awesome truth. So to sum it up here, the entirety of what Moreness culture is not, it's not about that shallowness, that materialness, that dependency on the approval of others. No, it is about personal exploration, personal growth, to get to a state of being where you can feel happy about yourself, where you feel, hey, I like who I am, I like where I'm at. I have integrity. I take some pride in who I am. It doesn't matter what other people think. In other words, it's to acquire freedom and independence of being, rather than living what Moreness culture is not. It's not about dependence and lack of freedom. Yes, and not going anywhere. It's about actually accomplishing and acquiring realness that really, really adds value and usefulness to your life. A very profound thing, very profound thing. So Moreness culture, it's not that easy to understand what it is via what it's not, but I hope it does help. Right? Moreness culture is a huge deal. It's very difficult to understand fully what it is, which is why we have, so we're on episode 7 and there's a lot more to come. Yeah, and and we're still not getting to fully understand it, but that's the nature of something that's so wonderful. Yes, it's like love. Who's ever been able to really definitively define love? Moreness culture, very, very complex, much like love. Yeah, brilliant, brilliant. On that note, we'll sign off and we'll see you again next week, hopefully with Beena again. Bye-bye. Maybe in a different time slot. Bye-bye. By the way, but bye-bye.
This has been The Moreness Show with Syl and Beena. Tune in each week as they focus on bringing joy and peace of being to us all. Thursdays, 9 p.m. Eastern on the Bold, Brave TV network. Powered by B2 Studios.